Free board game giveaway? Oh, and there might even be a top 51 board games of all time list coming in. Come on back after the break. Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Board Game Reviews. This is a YouTube channel based on the tabletop gaming hobby and items of interest to tabletop gamers, including games, reviews, and other topics for tabletop gamers. Now before we go ahead and get into the video, I want to go ahead and give a shout out over to Guerrilla Miniatures Games and Ash over at Guerrilla Miniatures Games. Now if you're not a fan of the channel, take a minute, go subscribe, really. You'll thank me later for it. But the reason why I want to bring some attention to Guerrilla Miniatures Games and Ash himself is the fact of a very, very serious topic. And that's going to be the serious topic of homelessness. Now, Ash over at Guerrilla Miniatures Games is working for some support for the charity for the Coldest night, which is going to be on February 20th. Now, we all know that homelessness itself is an extremely serious topic, and it's becoming extremely more serious as time goes by with current global events. But what's even worse about the homelessness issue is that it's extremely serious in colder climates. In colder climates where people can be exposed to temperatures of 10, 15, 20, or even 30 degrees below zero, it goes from just a very serious issue all the way up to an issue about scarring, permanent scarring through frostbite, or even more serious things such as the loss of life due to extreme exposure to extreme temperatures. Now, Ash is looking for some support for the Coldest Night charity. I'm going to leave a link down below in the YouTube comments to a direct link to his video where he talks about his Cold and Ice charity. I'm going to leave a link directly in the comments down below to his actual charity sponsorship itself, and also some more information directly to the Coldest Night charity website itself. Now, this is going to be a preamble video that's going to talk a little bit about my top 51 games of all time. And the reason why I like to do this little bit of a preamble video is because every time when you watch a top 51 list, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Why the heck isn't my favorite game on your list? What is wrong with you? Well, there's probably a good reason why the game is on that list, and I like to give the rules for my top 51 list because that can kind of help you understand where I'm coming from on this list, and some various things can influence why a game may be there, why it may not be there. And let's not forget that a top 51 list is actually pretty darn hard to make. I can make a 100 game list, that's easy. Breaking it down to 51 games, that's super hard because there are so many games that are just ever so close. Game number 52, 53, and 54 could just barely make it in the top 51 games, just depending on just some small factors ever changing. But instead of rambling on about those things, let's go ahead and cover the rules about every one of these games that has to be on this list, why these games make it on this list, and some certain rules can prevent any game from ever making it on this top 51 games of all time list itself. Okay, who am I kidding here? You all want to learn about how to win the free game. And I know every one of you wants to learn how you can win this free game, and you're all going, what's the free game? Well, here's kind of the cool thing and the interesting thing about the contest itself. First of all, to win the free game, you have to know what the game is. Now, the game that's being given away is a full Kickstarter edition of the game, new in shrink with all the expansions and everything that was offered with the Kickstarter itself. This is going to be given away to one viewer who just has to do two very, very simple things. All you need to do is watch the top 30 to 51 videos, and during those videos, there's going to be a phrase that I'm going to give away that's going to explain the phrase that you need to email, and I'm going to give an email address, of course, that you need to go to enter the contest. So what you're going to do is you're going to use this phrase that I'm going to announce. You're going to send an email with that phrase and the name of the game that's being given away to Off the Shelf Board Game Reviews, that's otsbgr@gmail.com. Send an email to that with the title Free Game Giveaway, Top 2020 Games of All Time. And in the comments, leave the name of the game and the phrase that allows you to enter the contest. I'm going to pick a random person from that list. And don't forget, if you're actually a sponsor of the channel over on Patreon, patreon.com/otsbgr, you actually get 2 entries for your entry. So being a supporter on the Patreon is definitely an extra bonus. So now all of you are saying, what's the game? Well, to find out what the game is, you had to watch my January edition of my monthly vlog to find out exactly what the game is, because I actually announced what the game is in the January edition of the vlog. So if you watch that video, you're already one step ahead about knowing what the game is. Send that email with the name of the game and the secret code phrase, and you can be entered to win a really great game. So let's go and cover those rules really quick. First and foremost, the biggest rule on the list is I am not allowed to look at my list from prior years. I consider it cheating, and I don't want to be influenced with my prior thoughts over the past couple of years. I actually want to see how my opinions and how my enjoyment of the gaming hobby is evolving over the years. So while I'm putting together my list, I'm not allowed to look at my prior lists. As a matter of fact, I haven't looked at any lists in probably, Well, I think last time I actually looked at the last list is when I filmed it, so it's been a long time, so hopefully none of those influences are going to exist at all. The next rule for this list is that no game on this list can be more of a solo one-and-done style game. Basically, I think solo one-and-done style games, while they can be enjoyable, and they're enjoyable while you're playing through them for the first time, to me, they don't make top 51 games of all time because they're more of an experience, they're more about evolving story. It's pretty much, for me, like kind of comparing like a choose your own adventure book. Okay, the choose your own adventure book is a really cool idea. It's enjoyable, it's fun, but it's not really a game, and neither of these games are pretty much just a solo experience that you're meant to play through one time and you'll be done with the game. I kind of put the Seventh Continent in this list, and I know a lot of people are going to go, boo, how dare you say that about the Seventh Continent? Well, let's be honest. How many of you are playing the Seventh Continent multiple times? I would wager that a vast majority of you are going to play the first curse maybe twice, because that's how many times it takes to beat it. Then each additional curse probably takes you a couple hours to play through it. And unless you're going to suffer amnesia or pull out a hammer and beat yourself over the head, not recommending that. Unless you're going to do something like that, you remember how to play the game. It's not a game you're going to play through ever again. Cool experience the first time, not a top 51 games of all time material. Following on that, a game to make it on my top 51 games of all time list has to be a game that is extremely replayable. Following on and kind of matching that theme about the games I was talking about that are solo, this is going to be on the actually opposite end of the spectrum from the solo games, and that's going to be the group games that are one and done. I'm basically talking about the exit games and games in that genre. Now, I think they're a great idea. They're a great party environment. They're a great thing to play with your friends. You can basically take out these games, invite a couple of friends over, crack open the box, throw down the components, and you're good to go. It's a phenomenal idea. It's a great idea, but to me, they don't belong in a top 51 list because they're not replayable. These are enjoying encounters with friends and family that you can have a heck of a lot of fun with, but basically, like I said, it's not really a game. To me, it's more of an experience. A great experience, don't get me wrong, but if I included these kind of games on my list, you'd see that this list would actually be quite different, and it's actually not really going to be a list about great games. It's going to be a list about great experiences, and again, this is a list about great games and great games that need to be recognized. Next up, and this is going to be a harsh one, but I have to do this because I'm very pro-consumer, it cannot be a game that is only available on Kickstarter. Sorry, Claustrophobia, you're a great game, you're a wonderful game, but you're only available on Kickstarter. That's the only way you can get that game. So unless you're lucky to be there at the right place, the right time, and manage the back of the game with Kickstarter, you can't get it. I'm not going to support the thing because I think it's very anti-consumer. Sure, we can go talk about the Kickstarter thing and argue back and forth for probably hours and hours on end. I'm firm about this. If a game is a one-time only on Kickstarter and never hits retail, it's never going to be on my list. Next up, and this is kind of a brutal one because there are actually some games that could definitely be on my top 51 games of all time if they weren't part of this problem, or I shouldn't say problem, it's probably the wrong words to choose here, but it cannot be a collectible game of any kind. If it has a collectible component where you're chasing rares or anything like that, I'm not going to put that on this list. That means that Magic the Gathering, as great of a game it is, it's a game that's been out for, well, let's see, I think we're approaching 27 years this game's been out on the market. It should deserve recognition as a top 51 game of all time. It's not going to be on a list because of the collectible component of the game. Sure, I know that there's the sets that you can buy that are pre-made and everything like that, but the actual fact of the matter is, I don't think Magic is my favorite collectible card game. Matter of fact, I know it isn't. I think the original Legend of the Five Rings back when AEG owned the property, and even Vampire were much, much better collectible card games. And one of them was actually made by Richard Garfield, the same guy who made Magic the Gathering. And I think he improved upon the design immensely with the Vampire game. Now, since these games are basically collectible card games, they're not going to be on my list. Sure, I really want to put two of them on my list really, really badly, but they're not going to make the list because of that collectible component. And finally, this is going to be the hardest rule to have to throw out here on the table, but no party games are allowed. Say Anything is an absolutely fantastic game. If you've never played Say Anything at a party, you are missing out. Say Anything takes everything that is wrong about Cards Against Humanity, mixes it with an actual real game that you can play multiple times to create one of the best party games that you can play with friends, including alcohol and adults, and a whole bunch of heck of a lot of fun. But again, it's a game that's more about the experience versus the gameplay itself. And I know that's not fair because Say Anything is actually a really great game. And there's other games that fit the party criteria also, but they're party games, so they're not going to be on this list. And finally, in the realm of entering a little bit of the spoilers here, and yes, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler here, But there are some games that if I could have had some more plays with the games, they had a high potential of making the list, but they didn't get as many plays as I wanted them to quite just barely make it onto the list. And actually, I'm pretty sure one of them would have made it on the list, and that's going to be Kanban EV. Didn't get enough plays with the game, but it's a classic Lacerda game. I'm a great fan of his designs. I really enjoy it. The new edition from Eagle Griffin Games is actually very well done. It has some solo components to it. It has a great way to play the game all the way up to 4 players. A really deep, rich game, classic Lacerda design. Didn't get enough plays with it, or could have been on the list. And also, kind of skirting along right there with Kanban is going to be the new game of Dune. Now, I know Dune came out in, I think, 2019. There's even a new expansion for it. It brings it up to 8 factions. This is probably one of the best modern versions of diplomacy you are ever going to play, in a really, really cool thematic design, taking the Dune universe itself. This is one of those games that plays fantastically at 5 or 6 players. Don't play with less, because it loses one of the wonderful charms of the game, which is the backstabbing, the treachery, the double dealing. Oh, well, it's basically the Dune license in a nutshell. It's a great game. Didn't get enough plays to it because of, well, let's just say it, because of COVID. I couldn't get enough of my friends around the table to play this game enough times. But there's a really good chance that next year, once we get this problems all taken care of, it could be on my top 51 games of all time. Now, talking a little bit about the spoilers, Warcry landed right on 52. Now, I know Warcry was on my list last year. Can't remember where, but Warcry was on my list last year, and it just got bumped off the list. Why did it get bumped off? Well, it got bumped off because of another game. Well, don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I'll talk about it when I talk about that game itself. Now, for anybody out there who happens to be a statistics junkie just like me, just going to go over a couple of really cool quick statistics for you. If you care about them, cool. If not, just fast forward about 30 seconds to wrap up here. It'll be a little bit easier on you that way. But the first statistic is there are 15 new games on the list this year. The highest entering game that is a brand new game on the list hops in at number 14, which is a heck of a jump. But when you see the game, you're probably going to agree with me that definitely deserves to be on the list. The biggest drop that is still actually on the list, and was actually a huge surprise to me, and again, I know why it happened, and I'll explain it when I talk about the game, was a game that managed to drop 36 spots, but still managed to stay on the list. But counteracting that, the game that had the biggest jump was actually 31 spots up on the list, which was a huge jump for this game. And then finally, the games that had the smallest moves, well, interestingly, 2 games did not move at all. Which games were they? Well, stick around for the top 51 games and find out exactly what those games happen to be. Now, this was the hardest top 51 games of all time list I have ever done, and I know I say that every time I do one of these videos, but seriously, this was the hardest list I have ever done. I went over my list for 2 full weeks looking at games going, this game has to be on the list. And then I was like, no, because this game has to be on the list. Okay, that's going to bump this game. That's going to put this game up on the list. And oh my gosh, I could not believe how much I deliberated just making this top 51 list, because there are just so many great games, so many fantastic games, so many awesome games I own, but there can only be 51 of the best games, and they're the only ones that can make it to the list. Now, I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you enjoy this video series. If you have any comments or questions, as always, leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I will definitely get to them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll answer your email as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this channel and you want to help support the channel, think about throwing $1 over in the tip jar over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/otsbgr. Just $1 in the tip jar can help me cover my costs and help keep the lights on. If you enjoy this video, you enjoy this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.